It's a little cool out here this morning. I should go back to my truck and get my jacket. 60 something, I think, low 60s, but man, nice breeze going. What I wanted to talk today about is something that anybody who has been involved with someone from the Philippines is certainly aware of. And that's the fact that Filipinos do not like to think about sad things, you know? You've probably heard the expression Bahala na, which I guess is actually a shortened form of a longer expression, which means that God will take care of things. And basically it's just a way of saying, well, you know, whatever's going to be is going to be, and just a fatalistic acceptance of things and not wanting to think about it. They don't like to think about sad things that might happen in the future. You always hear about how Filipinos always have a smile on their face no matter what the horrible situation is that they're in. And part of it is because they have that kind of fatalistic view of things. Some of it, you know, let's be honest, the reason a lot of people have fatalistic views about things is just because they're in a situation where they have no power to change it. And so what choice do they have? They can say, that's the way it is, have to deal with it, or they can try and turn it into a virtue, you know, like, well, this is something great, you know, like they're going to learn from it. It's a lesson to be learned, and that they're better off this way than they would have been otherwise. I think it was Bill Maher one time I was watching, talking about all these people who want to act like everything is, you know, like things aren't really handicaps, you know, and that trying to help people, like say help blind people see again, it's like you're saying there's something wrong with the way they are. Well, you know, if you're a blind person, you probably want to be able to see again, you know, or if you ever never had the chance to start with, or if you had the chance to hear, you know, for people to say, well, this is the way I am and it's a benefit, it's a blessing, it makes me better, that's just bullshit, you know. That's a way of people trying to cope with things and find a way to live with it and not be sad about it. But if you actually have the power to change those things, then suddenly, you know, maybe you aren't sitting around anymore saying, well, gee, I like it the way I am. This is better this way, you know? I'm sure if we could find a way to extend our lives, you know, a few more centuries, there are plenty of people, including me, who would say, let's do it, you know? I'd like to be around forever. I always hoped that maybe I'd live long enough for them to figure out how to download our minds into a quantum computer or something and stick around. Lots of stuff I'd like to see in this humongous universe out there. And if I have to live in an artificial body, or you know, I can enjoy whatever artificial reality I want. Who knows? Whatever. But I don't want to die. And you know, a lot of times we try to make it sound like these things are just, you know, part of life, and like there's something good about it just because we have no power to change it. Whereas if we did have the power to change it, we would do that. But on the subject of sad things, King Solomon, according to Jewish tradition, wrote the book of Ecclesiastes. And in that book, which he wrote in his later years in life, he spent a lot of time reflecting on, you know, his own mortality. And one of the things he said in there was that it is better to go to the house of mourning than to the house of rejoicing. That doesn't mean that it's better to go to a funeral than a wedding or something, but we need to take the time to reflect on our own mortality and on what we're doing here in this world and how we can live a good life, you know? We need to think about those things. And it's not fun, but there are times when there are lessons to be learned from thinking about it. You know, if you've you've been involved with some young Filipina, whether it's a girlfriend or a wife, and talk about how the fact that you're going to be dead someday, unfortunately, and wanting to make sure that things are okay for her, and talk about life insurance and things like that. They don't even want to hear about it. They're like, don't talk about that. It makes them sad. They are very sensitive to anything that interferes with their basic enjoyment of right now. My wife doesn't even like to hear me watch a football game because she thinks I'm stressing myself out about it, And I'm not really seriously stressed about it, but, even just hearing somebody, like God swearing at the TV and stuff, they don't understand. It's just, it's not like I'm having a heart attack about it or something. It's just part of watching the game, But stuff like this stresses them out and gets them really nervous and sad. They don't want to talk about sad things. So for us, being involved with them, it's our responsibility to think about those things, whether they want to or not. If they don't want to think about it, they don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But we still have to find a way to make sure that all that stuff is taken care of. Because we don't like to think about stuff like that either, but we understand, here in our society, it's something that you have to plan for and take care of things. That's just something in the structure of our society that they don't really have in the Philippines. It's like retirement planning. When you're barely making enough to survive, everybody else in your family working, making very little money just to try and get through the day. Retirement planning is the farthest thing from your mind. It's the same way with people here in America in a lot of cases. You hear that from a lot of people in the younger generation today, especially people who have, tons and tons of debt from going to college. They just never thought about their path in life. It's just understood, well, you go to school, go to high school, you get out, go to college, find a way to get loans or scholarships or whatever you can do to go to college. And in a lot of cases, they've never really thought about, am I actually going to be able to find a job that's going to make what I'm doing in college worthwhile, That's why you hear a lot of talk these days about helping people just find a trade or something where they can actually make good money without all that college debt. But a lot of young people today, they, especially with the price of housing and everything, they don't have the kind of money to be putting aside for some, huge retirement someday down the line. It's the farthest thing from their mind, and so they don't even think about it really. But at least here in our society, that's something that has been kind of programmed into people that eventually you need to think about. In the Philippines, all that long-term planning is sometimes just not present. And it's all a part of that same kind of attitude about thinking about today and not worrying about tomorrow. But if you're in a relationship with someone, it's your responsibility to think about it for them. Whether they like it or not, you need to make sure that it's taken care of. I mentioned before in one of my videos that, we've got a house built over in the Philippines. A couple little things I need to finish paying off. Some zero interest stuff I got to pay off over the next year or two. If I don't want to pay it off early, which there's no point in doing that. I've got a life insurance policy, everything. If something did happen to me, everything's going to be fine for my family, So I'm at peace with that and relaxed about it. Doesn't mean I want to leave right now. I'd like to stick around for a long, long time. But sometimes you need to go down to the house of mourning. And it's not just, for your own self-reflection, but to be with those who are mourning too, and to comfort them, That's one thing that was always good about my mom. She spent so much time in a hospital herself. She had rheumatoid arthritis her whole life from the time she was very young. So many different surgeries and stuff, and, problems with her hands and all of that. And that's one thing she told me, that she always appreciated it so much when people came and stayed with her. And that's one thing with her. Somebody in our church or whatever was, was sick in the hospital, My mom was always one of the very first people to volunteer to go and spend the night with them, stay there in their room with them and keep them company. And, we need to be like that too. We need to help people when they are in mourning and help them get through it. But we also need to take that chance to reflect on our own lives, and what we're doing, and whether or not what we're doing is worthwhile. If when we're done here in this world, we'll have lived a life that's worth being proud of, or something that we should be ashamed of. And it doesn't mean we need to actively seek out sad situations, but we need to, in any kind of event in our life, think about it sometimes from a little bit more serious point of view instead of just, oh, this is something that happens, and take that opportunity to reflect. And that includes, even if it's people we don't know, we see sad things happen, people who die or whatever, things that people are going through in their lives. Sometimes instead of just eating and drinking and being merry and going to the house of rejoicing, we need to be willing to spend a little time in the house of mourning and reflect on things. So that's my cheery thought for the day. I don't plan on doing any mourning today, but that's just food for thought.